The rooftop was quiet that morning, except for the soft rustle of leaves in the wind and the occasional hum of Lyra's floating crystal. Evan carried a small tray of water and tools, while Lyra carefully inspected each sprout. The small rooftop garden had become their shared project, and somehow it had grown from chaos into a miniature paradise. "You are improving," Evan said, kneeling to check a tomato plant. "Leaves look healthy, roots are strong. Not bad for your first week." Lyra's eyes glimmered with pride. "Thank you, teacher. Your methods are very effective. I can see why humans endure. You do not rely only on machines. You care, you experiment. You persist," Evan smiled. "Yeah, it's not easy, but it works." For a moment there was a comfortable silence. Then Lyra's tone changed. It became softer, almost hesitant. "Evan," she said quietly, "may I speak honestly?" "Of course," Evan replied. "My world, it is dying. Not entirely, but slowly. We rely on machines that create food from energy. If the system fails, even for a short time, people go hungry. We cannot grow life ourselves. We never learned human methods, my people. They laugh at your primitive ways, but I see now that perhaps they mock out of fear." Evan's heart sank. He hadn't realized the stakes were so high. "You mean, if your world could farm like humans, they wouldn't starve?" "Yes," Lyra said, her voice firm now, as if making a decision. "I came here to learn, not for fun. I wish to save my people. They think technology alone is enough. But life requires attention, care, and patience. They do not understand this." Evan sat down, feeling the weight of her words. "So, you're not just here to study humans. You want to bring what you learned back home?" Lyra nodded, her eyes shining. "Yes. If I can master human breeding, even a small garden, I can show them it is possible. Life does not require only energy. It requires hands, hearts, and hope." Evan realized that her curiosity had shifted. It wasn't just excitement or clumsy mistakes anymore. Lyra's fascination with human methods had grown into something serious. A mission. "All right," Evan said slowly. "Then we need a plan. You can't just experiment randomly. You need structure, measurements, and consistent care. You also need to keep records. I already record," Lyra said proudly, pointing to the crystal floating above her. "Every action, every result. But you are correct. I need a system. Humans thrive because of systems." Evan nodded. "Good, we'll start with a small rooftop plot. I'll show you the basics: planting, watering, fertilizing, and cross-pollination. Then we'll measure growth. Over time, you'll see results." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Yes, I will learn. I will master human methods." Over the next few days, Evan taught her proper techniques. She learned to plant in rows, rotate crops, and use compost. She also started keeping a detailed notebook in her alien script, with diagrams and annotations in human terms. She even learned to use a small digital sensor Evan had bought. It measured soil moisture, sunlight, and temperature. "Humans trust data," Evan explained. "You cannot just guess. You need numbers." Lyra tilted her head. "Data, yes. Numbers guide growth just as intention guides life." "Fascinating. On my world, we rely only on machines. They do not fail. But they also do not teach patience nor respect." Evan realized he was seeing something remarkable. Lyra wasn't just learning human methods. She was understanding why humans survived and thrived. One afternoon, Evan brought up a new challenge. "Okay, we'll try something harder. You've grown small crops, but now we'll experiment with hybrid plants. This is how humans create new varieties." Lyra's eyes widened. "Hybrid plants, you mean combining strengths to create something better?" "Yes," Evan said. "You take two strong plants, cross their seeds, and over time select the best traits. You're shaping the future of life itself." Lyra's expression became serious. "I must succeed. If I can show my people, if I can teach them, then they may survive a crisis. Even one plant is proof. Even one seed can change a world." Evan was silent. Her determination was inspiring, but he also felt the pressure. This wasn't just a rooftop garden anymore. It was the potential lifeline for her entire civilization. The first hybrid experiment began with beans. Evan showed her the process, gently removing pollen from one flower and transferring it to another. Lyra approached with extreme care, speaking to each flower before touching it. "Little one," she whispered, "combine your strengths. Honor the humans who nurture you." Evan held back a laugh, but he had to admit, her precision was unmatched. Where a human might rush through the process, Lyra's careful hands ensured nothing was damaged. By the end of the day, several flowers had been pollinated. Lyra stepped back, hands clasped, and gazed at the rooftop. They will grow. I feel it. They will thrive. Evan nodded, impressed. You might be right. Sometimes patience is more important than skill. Evenings were devoted to video logs. Lyra would float the crystal above her and speak directly to her people. She began every entry with the same phrase, "Watch before deleted." "Today," she said, her voice steady and thoughtful, "I learned humans endure because they experiment. They fail, then try again. Life is fragile, yet they nurture it with care. Machines cannot replace devotion. Even a small rooftop garden teaches lessons my people must learn." Evan listened quietly. He realized that what she was recording was more than just gardening tips. It was a lesson in humanity itself, our resilience, creativity, and determination. One day, a problem arose. A sudden storm swept across the city, pounding the rooftop garden with heavy rain. Some seedlings were knocked over, soil washed away, and a few fragile sprouts broke. Evan rushed to protect them, but Lyra was already there, carefully cradling each plant. "They are alive," she said firmly, "and we must not fail them. Humans survive because you do not give up. Neither will I." Together they rebuilt the damaged garden, replanting seeds, reinforcing soil, and even creating small covers to shield the sprouts. By nightfall, everything was back in order. Evan felt admiration for Lyra. Where he might have been frustrated, she treated each setback as a lesson, not a failure. And he realized that was exactly what made humans special, the refusal to give up. That night, as they sat under the stars, Evan asked, "Lyra, are you sure your people will accept this? You know, rooftop gardens, plant breeding. They might think it's primitive or silly." She looked thoughtful. "Yes, they may laugh. They may ignore me. But even one success will show them that life can grow without machines. Even one plant proves patience, care, and effort matter. One seed can inspire many. One garden can change a civilization." Evan smiled. "I guess I never thought about it that way. Humans often take it for granted, but yeah, I see it now." Lyra floated her crystal closer, speaking softly. "Watch before deleted. Today I learned humans endure because they care. Their hands guide life. Their patience creates strength. I must return home and teach this, for even one seed can save a world." Evan watched her, realizing that what started as a silly experiment in human gardening had become something much bigger. Lyra wasn't just curious. She was determined. She was learning the essence of humanity, and somehow he felt proud that he was part of it. The rooftop garden, small and fragile, had become a symbol, a beginning of change, a bridge between worlds, and proof that humans could teach more than technology. They could teach resilience, patience, and hope. And for the first time, Evan understood why she had chosen him as a teacher. The small rooftop garden had become a living puzzle of green leaves and colorful sprouts. What had started as a chaotic experiment was now a carefully organized plot, with rows of beans, tomatoes, and carrots stretching in neat lines. Evan and Lyra moved among the plants every morning, watering, pruning, and checking for pests. Lyra had become much more confident in her human gardening skills. She no longer muttered strange chants or negotiated with the soil. Well, at least not as much. She measured every inch of growth, recorded the weather, and analyzed how sunlight affected each plant. She even created small diagrams comparing growth rates using both alien symbols and human numbers. "Look at this, Evan," she said one morning, pointing to a tomato plant. "Its leaves are whiter than yesterday. The growth is exponential. Your methods are remarkable." Evan smiled. "Thanks. You're doing most of the work." "I just supervise," Lyra shook her head. "No, you show me the logic. Humans endure because you understand cycles, seasons, patience, and observation. You teach me to see life itself." Evan felt a little embarrassed, but also proud. He had never thought of gardening as a heroic act, but seeing it through Lyra's eyes made it feel like more. The neighbors soon noticed the small rooftop oasis. At first, it was a few curious glances from nearby apartments. Then one by one, people began stopping by. Some asked questions about the plants, while others were just amazed at how green the tiny garden was in the middle of the city. Lyra welcomed each visitor, explaining everything in her soft, deliberate voice. She spoke about soil, sunlight, water, and growth as if every detail was a treasure. Evan watched as people listened carefully, nodding and taking notes. Even humans seemed impressed by her dedication. "It is fascinating," one neighbor said. "You really care about these plants." "Yes," Lyra replied. "Life is precious. Humans understand this. I am learning from your culture." Evan felt a surge of pride. He realized that Lyra's lessons were now spreading. Her curiosity and respect for life were inspiring others. Lyra's experiment. The rooftop garden had grown lush and green, a small oasis above the noisy city streets. Lyra moved carefully among the plants, checking each leaf and sprout. Evan carried a watering can, but mostly he watched in awe as his alien roommate guided the tiny crops with a steady hand. "This is impressive," Evan said. "You've come a long way since your first bean experiment." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "Yes, but my people may not see it that way." Evan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Her voice lowered. "I have received a transmission from my government. They have noticed my experiments. They have warned me, stop sharing forbidden knowledge. Delete all records. Any evidence of human methods. Erased." Evan felt his stomach tighten. "Wait, what? They want you to delete all the data? Your videos, the logs, everything?" "Yes," Lyra said, her tone firm but troubled. "They believe humans' ways are primitive. They fear that if my people learn from them, it may disrupt society. My recordings are considered dangerous." Evan looked around at the rooftop garden, at the rows of beans, tomatoes, and carrots growing strong under their care. "So they want to erase all of this?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. They do not understand the value of patience, care, or learning from another species. They fear change." For the first time, the rooftop felt heavy. The plants, once symbols of growth and hope, seemed fragile under the weight of this new threat. Evan tried to think. "Lyra, you can't just let them erase your work. This garden, your recordings. It shows your people how humans survive, how humans create life. You can't give that up." "I know," Lyra said softly. "But if I disobey, there may be consequences, punishment, censorship, even exile." Evan frowned. "Exile or worse?" Lyra shook her head. "I do not know. My people are strict. I have never defied them before. But I cannot destroy knowledge that can save lives. Even one plant, one experiment. It may show my civilization a new path." Evan felt a surge of admiration. She was willing to risk everything to share the truth. That was more human than most humans he knew. "Then we find a way," he said firmly. "We protect your recordings and your garden. We make sure this knowledge survives." Over the next few days, they worked quickly but carefully. Lyra hid copies of her videos in encrypted files within the crystal, each labeled with a code that only she could understand. Evan helped set up a small private server in his apartment. Even if the alien authorities tried to delete her recordings, they would survive. Meanwhile, they continued working in the garden. The plants needed care, and Evan knew that keeping them alive was essential, not just for food, but for the proof of their work. "Do your people really not care about life?" Evan asked one evening as they watered the plants. "They care," Lyra said, glancing at him. "But they trust machines more than living things. Life is inconvenient, unpredictable. Humans, you embrace it. You shape it. You nurture it. That is why your methods are powerful." Evan nodded. "I guess that's why you wanted to learn them. Not just for curiosity, but because it matters, really matters." "Yes," Lyra said. "If my people see even a small rooftop garden thrive, they may begin to understand. Even one seed can teach hope." The tension grew when a new message arrived. It was strict, urgent, and clear. All recordings and experiments must be deleted immediately. Failure to comply will result in severe disciplinary action. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she held the crystal. "They are serious. This is no longer a suggestion." Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we show them it's worth the risk. We can't erase what can save lives. You've worked too hard for this." Lyra nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "Yes, humans endure because you defy fear. I will do the same." Together, they fortified their rooftop garden. Lyra added protective covers over fragile seedlings. Evan built small support structures for the hybrid plants. Every detail was recorded, every measurement noted. The rooftop became both a laboratory and a symbol of resistance, a quiet rebellion against fear and ignorance. Neighbors continued to visit, curious about the garden and the strange alien who tended it. Lyra explained carefully, teaching them about sunlight, water, and plant care. She was cautious not to reveal everything about her experiments, but enough to inspire curiosity and respect for life. Humans endure because you care for life, she told a group of neighbors. Even small efforts matter. Even small gardens can create change. Evan watched as people listened intently. Some took notes, others asked questions. The rooftop garden had become a hub of learning, a quiet testament to what patience and dedication could achieve. And through it all, Lyra continued to record her watch-before-deleted videos, carefully preserving every detail. One evening, Evan asked her, "Do you ever worry your government will come after you?" Lyra paused. "Yes, fear exists. But humans survive because you face fear, not run from it. You act. You protect what is valuable. I must do the same." Evan nodded. "Then let's make sure they see it. Not just your people, but the galaxy. If humans can create life from a rooftop garden, maybe other civilizations can learn too." Her crystal glowed softly as she spoke into it. Watch before deleted. Today I learned that even when authorities demand silence, truth can survive. Life, patience, and care are not crimes. Even one garden can inspire a civilization. Evan smiled. That's right. Even one garden. Even one seed. The next morning, Lyra and Evan faced a minor crisis. A sudden storm rolled in, stronger than usual. Rain pounded the rooftop and wind threatened to topple the fragile plants. Evan grabbed what he could, covering seedlings and tying stakes securely. Lyra worked alongside him, her movements precise, her focus unwavering. "Life is resilient," she said, steadying a tomato plant. "But we must help it survive. Even humans require guidance." By the time the storm passed, most of the garden had survived. Some leaves were torn, some sprouts bent, but the hybrid crops remained intact. Evan and Lyra breathed a sigh of relief. "See?" Evan said. "Even nature tests us. But we endure. That's why humans thrive." "Yes," Lyra agreed, looking at the soaked garden. "And that is why knowledge must survive. Even one storm cannot erase hope." As the week progressed, Lyra decided to take a bold step. She would share her final, most complete video log, watch before deleted, proof of human breeding and care. She carefully recorded the rooftop garden, each plant labeled, each hybrid documented. Her voice was calm, confident, and inspiring. "This," she said, pointing at the hybrid plants, "is proof that even small efforts can create life. Even one rooftop garden shows the value of patience, attention, and hope. I will share this with my people. They may resist, but they must see. Even one seed can inspire a civilization." Evan watched, amazed. Lyra's words carried weight. She had transformed from a curious alien student into a messenger of hope, bridging worlds with a simple garden. That night, as the city lights twinkled below, Evan and Lyra sat among the plants. The hybrid crops were healthy, the beans climbing stakes, the tomatoes ripening bright red. Lyra's crystal floated nearby, capturing their quiet conversation. "You know," Evan said, "you're not just learning human gardening. You're showing your people why humans survive. Patience, care, adaptation. That's what it's really about," Lyra smiled. "Yes, and one day my people will understand. Even if they laugh, even if they resist, one seed, one garden can grow hope." Evan looked at the thriving plants, the small community that had begun to gather, and felt something he hadn't expected. Pride. Not just for the garden, but for Lyra and for humanity itself. Even in the face of censorship and fear, life endured. And so did hope. The city skyline glowed under the early morning sun. On the rooftop, the garden had grown into a small paradise. Lyra moved among the plants, carefully checking each one. Beans climbed stakes, tomatoes glistened red, carrots pushed through the soil, and the hybrid crops were stronger than ever. Evan watched her quietly, amazed at how much she had learned and changed. "Evan," Lyra said softly, "today we take the final step." "What final step?" he asked, curious. "I will share the knowledge," she said. "I will send the recordings to my people. They will see the rooftop garden, the hybrid crops, and the results of human patience and care. Even if they resist, even if they doubt, the evidence cannot be denied." Evan nodded. "It's risky. They warned you not to do it." "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "But knowledge must survive. Life must survive. Even one seed can inspire hope. I have learned from humans. Now I must teach my people." Lyra carefully prepared the crystal for transmission. Each video was encrypted and labeled with the phrase, "Watch before deleted." She spoke clearly, showing the garden, explaining the methods, and describing each plant's growth. Her voice was calm yet full of conviction. "Today my people will see proof," she said. "Even a small rooftop garden can teach patience, care, and hope. Humans endure because they nurture life even when it is fragile. Even one seed can inspire a civilization." Evan helped her upload the files securely. "There, it's ready. Now it's in their hands," Lyra nodded. "Yes, now we wait." While waiting, the garden became more than a project. The neighbors who had stopped by continued to visit, bringing extra soil, seeds, and tools. They laughed, asked questions, and learned from Lyra's careful guidance. She taught them about sunlight, water, rotation, and hybridization. Her alien perspective combined with human methods made learning fascinating and memorable. "You're a great teacher," one neighbor. Evan never thought his life would change just because he said yes to a simple form. He was a second-year student at the university, living in a small apartment near campus. The rent was high, and his part-time job at the library barely covered food. When the interstellar exchange program asked for volunteers to host alien students, Evan signed up immediately. He expected a small allowance, maybe free groceries, and of course, an interesting story to tell his friends. But when the door to his apartment opened that afternoon, Evan realized he had underestimated what interesting really meant. The alien student stepped in. She was tall, with pale silver skin that shimmered under the light. Her eyes were wide, bright purple, and filled with endless curiosity. She wore something that looked like a mixture of a robe and a spacesuit, with glowing patterns shifting across the fabric. On her back was a small cube-shaped bag that hummed softly. "Hello," she said in a voice that was smooth but oddly formal, as if every word had been practiced. "I am Lyra, assigned to live here. I hope we will not experience—" "What is the word? Conflict?" Evan blinked, trying not to stare. He had seen aliens before, of course. Humanity had been part of the galactic exchange for almost 10 years. But this was the first time he had one standing in his living room. Hi," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "I'm Evan, welcome, no conflict, just make yourself at home." Lyra tilted her head. "Home," she repeated as if testing the word. Then she walked inside, placing her cube bag on the floor. The bag unfolded itself into a neat metal cabinet. The glowing patterns on her clothes dimmed, shifting into calmer tones. Evan thought maybe this wouldn't be so bad. She seemed polite enough. That thought lasted exactly 1 hour. By the evening, Evan had discovered 3 things about his new roommate. First, Lyra was endlessly curious about human objects, but she had no idea how to use them. He found her staring at the microwave, whispering to it like it was alive. When it beeped, she jumped back and saluted it. Second, she recorded everything. She carried a small crystal sphere that floated in the air, following her like a pet drone. It captured sound and images, and she spoke into it constantly. And third, her curiosity often led to very awkward questions. Evan was sitting at the kitchen table, eating instant noodles when Lyra's crystal sphere hovered in front of him. She leaned forward, eyes wide with excitement. "Evan," she said, "please explain. What is human breeding?" He nearly choked on his noodles. "What?" "Breeding," she repeated. "I hear this word often in your data networks. My translator identifies it as creation of new life through selection, but context seems unclear. Please explain for my record." Evan dropped his chopsticks. "Whoa, okay, hold on. You're recording this?" "Yes, my people must see what I learn. I begin each report with the phrase 'watch before deleted,' because officials often remove cultural material they dislike. But if enough people watch quickly, the knowledge survives." The floating crystal pulsed gently, waiting. Evan rubbed his forehead. He thought about how to explain without embarrassing himself, or humanity. Then it hit him. She wasn't asking about anything weird. She meant agriculture, farming, selective breeding of plants and animals. "Oh," he said, relieved. "You mean plant breeding, farming stuff, not the other thing." Lyra frowned. "Other thing? Never mind. Tell me how humans do it. How do you breed?" Evan laughed nervously, then pushed his bowl aside. "Okay, imagine you have 2 plants. Each has good traits. One grows fast, the other tastes good. Humans take seeds from both and combine them. Over time, we choose the plants with the best traits. That's how we made stronger crops, better food." Lyra gasped, her purple eyes shining. "You change nature itself? You do not wait for the environment to decide?" Exactly, Evan said. Humans shape the plants to fit their needs. That's how we survived for thousands of years. She turned to her crystal, speaking quickly. Note this. Humans do not rely only on machines. They bend living things to their will. This explains much. Evan wasn't sure if he liked the way she phrased that, but he let it go. At least she understood, or so he thought. The next morning, Evan woke to the sound of humming in the kitchen. He stumbled out of bed to find Lyra standing over the counter, wearing thick gloves, a clear visor, and what looked like 3 scarves wrapped around her head. She was carefully placing beans into the toaster. "What are you doing?" Evan shouted. "Breeding," she said seriously. "You said humans combine things with heat, light, and selection. I am attempting to cross this coffee bean with toast. The result should be strong and energizing." Evan slapped his forehead. "That's not how it works." Over the next few days, things only got stranger. Lyra planted apple seeds in the freezer, convinced they needed a period of cold meditation. She taped motivational notes to a cactus, telling it to grow strong and proud. She even asked Evan if she should negotiate with the soil for cooperation. It was frustrating. It was hilarious. And somehow it was endearing. Every evening, Lyra recorded her failures and discoveries into the crystal. She always began the same way. Watch before deleted. Today I learned another secret of human breeding. And every time Evan wondered how on earth he had ended up with a roommate who thought cacti needed pep talks. But one night, as they sat together on the balcony, Evan noticed something different. Lyra wasn't joking or fumbling this time. She stared at the stars, her glowing robe dim and calm. "My world does not have farming," she said softly. "We live on machines that create food from energy. It is efficient but fragile. If the machines stop, we starve. My people laugh at your ancient methods, but I see now. Perhaps they laugh because they are afraid." Evan looked at her. For the first time, he realized her curiosity wasn't just for fun. She was searching for something deeper. "You want to learn human breeding? To help your world," he guessed. She nodded. "Yes, maybe one day they will listen. But first, I must understand." "You will teach me, Evan?" He smiled. "Yes, I'll teach you. But no more beans in the toaster." Lyra tilted her head, then laughed, a sound like wind chimes. Her crystal floated closer, glowing bright as it recorded her final words for the night. Watch before deleted. Today, I learned that humans survive because they never wait for miracles. They create their own. The morning sunlight filtered through Evan's small apartment window, falling on the messy kitchen table. Seeds, pots, and a pile of strange alien tools were scattered everywhere. Lyra, standing in the middle of the chaos, looked as serious as a commander on a battlefield. "Evan," she said, pointing at a small pile of soil. "Today, we begin true human breeding." Evan groaned. "Okay, first lesson, this is planting. You put seeds in soil, give them water and sunlight, and wait." Lyra's purple eyes widened. "Wait, you expect life to appear without intervention?" "Without ceremony?" Evan blinked. "Well, yeah. That's the magic of nature. You plant, you care, and it grows." She shook her head. "This is primitive, but fascinating." "Very well." Lyra carefully picked up a small bean seed and held it between her long fingers. She bowed deeply to the soil. "Great seed, I request your cooperation. You will join with your partner to form a new, stronger life." Evan stared. It's just a seed. It doesn't..." "Negotiate," Lyra frowned. "Perhaps in your culture, plants are simple. On my world, even a small life form deserves respect." Evan decided to let it go. This would be easier if he stopped explaining every little thing. The first experiment was simple: cross-pollinating 2 types of tomatoes. Evan had a small kit on the counter, complete with tweezers, cotton swabs, and labels. "See?" he said, holding a tiny flower. "You gently move pollen from this flower to that one." "That's it," Lyra approached carefully. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the swab. Then she whispered to it as if it were an ancient relic. "Little one, your essence is important. Merge with your chosen partner." Evan almost laughed. "You really talk to them, don't you?" "I must," she said solemnly. "They respond better if their mind is prepared." By the end of the hour, Evan had 2 flowers cross-pollinated, and Lyra had spoken to at least 10 others. The beans were planted, the soil watered, and everything was labeled with neat little tags. But she wasn't done. Next, Lyra moved on to advanced breeding methods, which, to Evan's horror, involved alien rituals. She lit small floating orbs that emitted a soft glow and danced around the seedlings. She hummed a strange melody, waving her hands above the plants. Occasionally she would stop, lean close and whisper, "Grow faster, grow stronger, honor the humans who nurture you." Evan scratched his head. I don't think the tomato cares about honor." Lyra paused. "You underestimate the plant, Evan. In my world, all life responds to intention. Perhaps your world forgot this." Despite his skepticism, Evan noticed something interesting. Lyra was incredibly careful. Every plant was treated like a delicate treasure. She measured soil depth, monitored light angles, and even recorded temperature fluctuations. It was messy, chaotic and funny, but effective. By the third day, Evan could see small sprouts emerging from the soil. Lyra was ecstatic. "They grow," she shouted, bouncing slightly. "Life responds to patience and care. I am learning true human methods of breeding." Evan laughed. "See, told you. It's not magic, just patience and attention." Lyra shook her head. "No, Evan, it is magic, yes, but magic of a kind humans can touch. You create, not with spells, but with your hands.